Okay, we're all set up in our booth. We're ready to weld. Got our boat anchor tacked together. We are ready to go. Personal protective equipment is all on. We got our exhaust fan on. We know how to position it. Everything's cool. So what I want to talk about now is body position and sight lines. These are two of the most important things that you have to get a grasp on right off the bat. If you are not comfortable, you're going to have a hard time learning how to weld. You have to be comfortable, and I'm going to give you some examples of that. You have to be able to see the weld. If you can't see the weld, then you're just guessing at it, and guessing is not welding. So I'm going to show you how to position this stuff in the different positions you're going to be welding in, right? And make yourself comfortable so you can do this all day long and not go home fatigued because you're not comfortable and you don't have good sight lines. So let's start with flat position. I have my boat anchor sitting right on the table, right? And I have my electrode. This is a stick welding electrode, same as a MIG gun, same as a flux core gun. Body position and sight lines don't change for any welding process. You have to be able to see, you have to be comfortable. That's how you lay out nice welds. So for example, if I just put this plate here, and I come in and weld, I'm standing here and I call it free flowing. I'm standing here, I'm wiggling around, and I can't be steady. I can't be as steady as I need to be. Some people, when they're experienced enough, will weld this stuff with one hand. You're not experienced enough. You're a beginner, so take advantage of all the things. Now look at the difference. If I'm standing here, I think about how my eyesight is on this puddle. With any welding process, you always have something in the way. You have the slag in the way, you have the nozzle of the gun in the way. So what you need to do is position your head, number one, to get it out of the smoke, and number two, I'm going to put an angle on my sight line so I can see the puddle better. If I'm looking straight down at the puddle, I have slag, I have this electrode, I have all this spark, and I can't see it as good. I need to get my head off to the side so I can see that puddle better. The other thing is, this arm, the arm, if you're left-handed, you're going to have the gun or the electrode holder in your left hand. This arm is the free arm. If you're right-handed, this arm is the free arm. This is your stabilizing arm, okay? So the difference being, if I come in here and I'm wiggling all over the place, and then you bring your weld to your instructor and you say, what's the matter? We say, well, you're not comfortable, because you can check the internet right now and you cannot find a professional welder making a weld that isn't using this arm somehow to stabilize themselves. You don't have to have a death grip on here. You can simply just have this much. But if I bring my elbow down to the table, and now I can be more stable. This arm is just stabilizing this so it's not wiggling all around. Now these stands that we have in here were designed by a pretty brilliant fella. We can configure these poles. They move up and down and all around with other poles that can go on here. So for flat position, I can even bring this pole in and rest my elbow on it. Now, this is my stabilizer to the hand, and I can just move right across this thing, and it's going to give you much better results, and it's going to be much smoother weld bead. So that's kind of flat position. Next, what we'll talk about is vertical position. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit. One of the biggest problems that people do with vertical position is they assume that they should have this weld right in front of their face. The problem with that is twofold. Number one, I can't see as well because I'm trying to look around the end of the rod or the nozzle of the welding gun. Number two, I can't make it up this weld without raising my arms up like this. Anytime you raise your arms up above your heart, it only takes a few seconds and your hands will start shaking. So you always want to have your arms relaxed. This is all we need, is just forearms. These arms are relaxed. You don't want to weld all day with your shoulder muscles and your back muscles and all your arm muscles. This is all we need. So generally what I tell students is bring this down to about chest height. This does two things for us. Now, I can make this weld starting at the bottom, and my sight line changed, my vision changed. So I'm not looking straight at it, I'm looking down at it where the puddle is. So I can see the puddle much better. But also, now I can come up this whole weld joint, and all I'm using is my forearms. I'm not using any of these shoulder muscles and back muscles. It's just my forearms. I can come up this whole joint. So, to do vertical, we would also add this. And what I want to do now is distribute my weight evenly on my feet, shoulder length apart, and just be comfortable, like if you're just standing there. I'm comfortable. Now, I can bring this arm in. I can use this arm as my stabilizer. I'm comfortable, and I can run all the way up this weld, and I'm not using any shoulder muscles or back muscles. You have to get this arm stabilized, okay? Now my sight line is good. I'm looking right at the puddle. I'm not looking around my hands or my gloves or the slag. I have this arm stabilized, and I can just run this thing right up. So for vertical position, don't get it too high. Leave it sit about chest height. The next one would be horizontal position, which is welding sideways. That's pretty much self-explanatory. We won't spend much of time on that. Get it even where you can see it and make yourself comfortable. The other one that people have a hard time with is overhead welding. Now keep in mind, when they say overhead, it has nothing to do with how high the weld is. Overhead does not mean over your head. An overhead weld can be 2 inches off the ground. It's the position of the weld. We're welding upside down. So, again, instead of having this weld real high where my arms are up over my head, and I'm welding like this, and my arms are getting tired and I'm shaking, what we do with overhead is we start to utilize our legs, because our legs are way stronger than our arms, way bigger muscles. So, instead of stretching my arms out, I'm going to use my legs and squat down and use these legs. And now I can get down in here. My head is in line with the joint. I'm not looking at it from the side because I can't see if I do that. My head is in line with the joint. My arm goes to my stationary point, and I start making this weld across. Right? Get yourself comfortable. No matter what position you're in, no matter what weld you're doing, try different things. You have to have good sight lines so you can see the puddle, and stay in line with the joint so your vision is in line with the joint, not skewed to one side. If you do, you'll get one side of the weld real nice and the other side won't be real nice because you just can't see it. You have to be comfortable to weld. You have to be able to see the weld, and stabilizing yourself is going to make everything smoother. This is how this is done. You will get further and faster and better if you concentrate on sight lines and comfort.